Hello and welcome to this Astranti financial training video, where today we are of course looking at the March 2024 sitting pre-scene for the ACCA SBL exam. Now, what I should say is in this series of videos, we're going to analyze the pre-scene in great detail to give you the best chances possible to be totally knowledgeable and have understanding of the pre-scene before you take your exam. So to do that, we've got an offering of 5 videos for you. In the first 3 videos, we're going to go through the pre-scene line by line, pulling out all the pertinent information, making sure you're aware of it. So that'll be the first 3 videos, and then in the final 2 videos, the first one will be looking at strategic analysis of the company, and the second video will be looking at the top 10 issues we think that you are most likely to come across in the case study and why that is and everything to do with those issues. So let's get going. So you can see the pre-scene is broken down into 5 sections. In number 1, we've got an introduction into the organization that we're analyzing. And then in 2, we look at the industry that organization is in. Now, as you can see, we are looking at a football team. And so the industry they are operating within is the football sector. So from pages 2 to 7, we will be analyzing the football industry. Now, I should say this section 2 and section 1 and section 2 are going to take up the first 2 videos of these 3 videos. In the final video, we're going to be looking at the club in more detail, Athletic Transcentral, a really focused view, picking out various things. And then in the final 2 sections are bits and pieces, the mission and values, for instance, taken from Athletic Transcentral's website. And then the final section that we'll be looking at in video 3 are selected summaries of their financial information. So there we go. That's what we're covering in those 3 videos. So let's get going. So we begin at the beginning, and we see the organization that's under analysis is Athletic Transcentral, a football club, also known as soccer in some parts of the world, and they play in the football league of Kyleland. Now, Kyleland is a nation in the continent of Wosia. And the club itself is owned by the company called Athletic Transcentral Company, or Co., a company which has the sole objective of operating the football club. So, the success of the football club is going to lead to the success of the company. Now, we can see that Athletic Transcentral has been successful in the past, winning a number of trophies, but at the moment has struggled to compete with other leading clubs in Kyleland. So what we've got here is a club with a lot of prestige, which has got a history of success, which they've won a number of trophies, is going to have an established brand, an established legacy within the football community. Now, as we see, as we move through this pre-scene, that history is a really valuable asset for marketing, for fan engagement, and for sponsorship negotiations. But there is a word of warning, isn't there? The club has been successful in the past. We're dealing in the past tense. Unfortunately, at the moment, they are struggling to compete. So these recent struggles tell me there's a need for a strategic re-evaluation. We need to change the situation we are in. We need to regain competitive advantage. This scenario calls for a SWOT already. We need to analyze, or I should say identify, our internal strengths and our weakness, as well as our external opportunities and threats to guide that strategic redirection. We need to adapt to these changing market dynamics, these more impressive competitors. So there we go. That's what I get from the introduction. This case study is going to be very much focused on how are we going to move this club forward. Okay, so let's scroll on down now to the football sector information. And here we're learning all about the structure of football in Kyleland, the professional and recreational levels, as well as the dynamics of competition. And that's crucial for market analysis, because the information in this paragraph is going to help us identify target audiences and tailor any market strategies accordingly. Okay, but before we begin, let's look at the very basic elements of football. Footballers and football teams want to win, and they win matches by scoring more goals than the opposition. So if a team scores 2 goals and the opponent scores 1 goal, the team that scores 2 goals wins. Now, winning and losing are 2 outcomes of a football match. The third outcome is by drawing matches, and that's when teams score the same amount of goals or neither team scores at all. So the scores might be 0-0, no one wins, that's a draw. 1-0, no one wins, that's a draw. 2-2, and so on, no one wins, and that's a draw. Football is played by men's, women's and children's teams. Children are qualified or classified as under 18 years of age, and the clubs operate at a professional and recreational level. Now, we're dealing with a professional team with Athletic Transcentral. And as such, professional levels, players are full-time employees of the clubs. So let's go down now to professional clubs in Kyleland. So most clubs will run men's and women's first, reserve, which is second teams, and under 18 teams, pardon me. So we can see that most clubs are running 4 teams. The first team is so-called the first because that contains the club's best players. Now, the reserve teams are going to contain players who can be called on to replace players in the first team, because after all, players in the first team may get injured. They may have committed fouls, so they may not be allowed to play in subsequent matches, or they might just be out of form. Players that are scoring loads of goals one season might not be able to score the entire next season. So clubs have to think, well, how am I going to mitigate that and bring in someone from their reserve team? Now, all these teams have a manager in charge, and also each team has its own coaching and other staff. So the coaching staff are going to be working on the training pitch to get them to improve their game, to get them to improve as a team. And you're going to have a variety of support staff, from dietitians and nutritionists to people helping out in the facilities. Now, in Kyleland itself, 5 professional clubs have their own academies, and academies are something slightly different. Academies, the focus is on recruiting players, and that can begin about the age of 9 years old. And academies are really focused on a structured approach, letting these youngsters play football to a high level for their age, have personal and educational development also. But the aim of these academies is producing first team players to go up through the ranks to eventually represent their clubs at first team level. Players that are recruited in the academy system have more time to practice, to perfect their playing, I should say. They can have more time exposed to coaches than players in the under 18 teams of clubs without academies. So what we're seeing here is that an academy seems to be a really vital or an improved way over the under 18 team system to get players into the first team. And that's going to become really important when we see how much teams spend on first team players and the financial restrictions that teams are going to have to compete under. First team players have generally moved up from other teams at the same club or have been transferred in from other clubs. When players are transferred between clubs, a transfer fee is payable to the club selling the player by the club buying the player. Transfer fees for the best men's players can be very large indeed. Okay, so I support Leeds United. We're not in the Premiership of the English Football League, but this year we've spent £50 million on a midfielder. We've spent £12 million on a striker, and we've also bought in a couple of cheaper players as well. So you can see, even not at the top level in England, players are going for lots of money. Now, if we're looking at the top levels of the game, we are saying, well, clubs aren't even talking until it's 50, 60, 70 million. And we're increasingly seeing a lot of player transfers in that upper tens of million range. And of course, there is an international market as well. So clubs buy players from other nations. And we can see earlier on, didn't we, that Kyleland is in the continent of Wosia. And we'll see later on that Wosia has its own football structure as well. So no doubt these players are moving between Kyleland and other countries in Wosia. Now, the most important driver of profitability for professional clubs is the performance of the men's team in the Kyleland Football League and international competitions. So we're talking about the driver here, and that's because if a team's doing well, it moves further up the table or does better in competitions. And so it gets more prize money. If it's doing better, it's on TV more, so it gets more money for being on TV. If it's doing well, more fans are attracted to the stadium and buy tickets. If it's doing well, those fans spend money on merchandise in the stadium and on things such as food and drink. If it's doing well, fans around the world are buying merchandise and watching them on TV. So you can see that really is the driving factor behind profitability. And so what we've got to think about also is how we are going to get Athletic Transcentral challenging, improving its performance. Okay, so now let's look at the Kyleland Football League. The KFL has 3 divisions for clubs men's first team. Each division has 18 teams in it. The league season lasts from August to May, just like in England. Teams play each other in the league twice each season, once each time at each team's stadium. Teams earn the 3 points for winning a match. We were talking about earlier, 1 point for draw and no points for losing a match. So obviously teams want to win. So you need to have the players in your team that are going to help you win. That's going to drive you up the league of 18 teams. At the end of each season, the 2 teams with the fewest points are relegated from each of the divisions 1 and 2 of the KFL and play in the next division down the following season. The 2 teams with the most points are promoted from each of the divisions 2 and 3 of the KFL and play in the next division up in the following season. So, again, what we're seeing is how important it is that teams perform on the pitch. Because if you get relegated, if you drop down that league, well then you're losing all those drivers, all those profitability, we were just talking about. Less fans are going to come and watch you in the stadium. You are not going to be on television so much. Fans around the world aren't buying your merchandise. You are not getting so much prize money. Okay? So as soon as you drop down a league, your finances are in disarray. And again, talking about as a Leeds fan, that is something I can speak to very well. In the early 2000s, we were challenging for the European competitions. So the equivalent of Wokai in this pre-scene. Now, we spent lots of money on players. We kept on buying players. We bought good players. That wasn't the problem. The way we financed the players was the problem. And the fact that we didn't qualify for the lucrative European Cup. Now, because we didn't have that income from the lucrative European Cup, we had to start selling players. Because the way we'd financed the players, that wasn't enough to cover our losses. So we had to sell everyone. And we got relegated. And then we got relegated again. And then a few years later, we got 15 points deducted from us for breaking financial regulation. So we started the season when no one had played on minus 15 points. So we had to win 5 games just to start on 0. So you can see the dramatic effect relegation can have. And indeed, in the KFL regulations also suggest that financial misconduct by teams can relegate teams. So rather than just the point deduction I was talking about, the KFL will relegate teams for serious breaches of their regulations. So what we're also seeing here is a focus on us having good governance, on us having accurate financial reporting, on us being aware and abiding by the financial football regulations that we will see later on in this pre-scene. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit. Clubs in Division 1 of the KFL have supporters not just in Kyleland but all over the world, just like Premier League clubs. If you go to anywhere in the world, I've been to Argentina and talked about Leeds. I've been in the Middle East and talked about Leeds, although people really wanted to talk about Chelsea and Man United and Arsenal. People all over the world know football players. It's very lucrative, and fans can buy from all over the world. Clubs have websites, and of course, fans can watch clubs all over the world with satellite TV and over the internet. As well as the league, there is a domestic cup competition. All the teams in Kyleland play against each other. They're one-off matches played between two teams randomly, with the winner progressing to the next round until only two teams remain and play in the finals. It's just like the FA Cup in England. Pretty much every country with a serious professional football structure has one or two cup competitions. And then this is something we've mentioned already, the international competition. So the top three teams in Division 1 in Kyleland also play in the Wosea International League. They play against the most successful teams from other countries in Wosea. That means those that are taking part can earn more revenue because they've got more home games, and also from having their matches in the International League broadcast live on television. So think Champions League when you see this. And again, that's very lucrative because, again, if you're in the International League, you're going to get far wider recognition all over the world than if you're kind of at the bottom of the Division 1 in Kyleland. So important, again, that we have a re-evaluation of our strategy and try to get Athletic Transcentral up the league and into the top three positions. Now, of course, we've got to work out how the balancing act that. We can't just go out and spend loads of money on the top players. So how are we going to make sure we don't fall foul of the financial regulations, but we improve our performance? We're going to talk lots of different ways throughout this pre-scene about how we can improve our revenue streams, increase our income, but also really be mindful of our governance. So there we go. A final thing in this section are the other teams. The women's first teams play in Kyleland's Women's Football League. 2 divisions, 18 teams in each division. Not all clubs have women's teams. They also play in domestic cup competition. Reserve and under 18 teams also have their own competition. So what we're thinking about here is, are they comparable in any way to the men's leagues? Is there any way we can increase our income revenue from them? How well are we doing in the women's team? Is the reserve and under 18 teams really feeding through to the first team to help us become more successful? Because really that's the role of them, making the first team more successful, meaning that we don't have to rely so heavily on transfer fees. And the women's team, we don't know much about them yet, but women's football is suddenly taking off, isn't it? When I was growing up, you rarely heard of women's football. Now, major competitions are broadcast live on TV. When you're reading papers, live on the internet, they give live updated scores, they give you the details, they talk about transfer fees, which are rapidly increasing. So there's much more interest in the women's game. Be interested to see if that's the same thing in Kyleland. Is that something we could improve upon to help us improve our revenue streams? And there we go. I think that is the first section. So there we go. Now we can move on to the industry body. Okay, so on to industry body. I've just zoomed in a little bit so we can see things nice and clearly. We've got a few things to cover in this small section. Now, firstly, we're shown that Kyleland Football Association is the body that is responsible for enforcing the playing rules as well as other regulations within the KFL. Now, what we're seeing here is the importance of a regulatory body in maintaining the integrity and the fairness of the competition. The second thing is something we're going to come on to in a bit more detail later on in the video series, and that's the financial fair play regulations. So, as I said, we're going to come on to this in later detail, but it's just making sure that the clubs don't overspend, or teams don't overspend. So really, again, we're seeing the focus on financial sustainability and responsibility, responsible financial management in clubs. This is a really important aspect of making sure that clubs operate within their means and maintain a competitive balance. And the third point here is the KFA recommends that clubs follow generally accepted corporate governance, best practice. Now, of course, what we're talking about here when we're talking about good corporate governance in the context of sport organizations like football clubs is transparency, accountability, integrity, fairness, and responsibility. Now, a real world example of good corporate governance in the world of football can be seen in how the German Football League manages the Bundesliga, which is the name of the league in Germany. Now, the German Football League's emphasis on financial stability through its licensing system, which includes financial checks and balances, combined with its fan-friendly policies, which are all about fair ticket pricing and really good stadium experiences, showcases governance that balances financial health, competitive integrity, and stakeholder, and in this case, fan engagement. So that's a real world example of good corporate governance. But I think what we've seen in this very small section on the KFA's governance role really provides a crucial insight into the regulatory and operational environment that Athletic Transcentral navigates. So what this means for you sitting the exam is to make sure that any analysis or proposals in the strategic decisions that you make align with both the regulatory requirements and principles of good governance. That's going to be really important for you when you're sitting this pre-scene. So here we go into looking at the different revenue streams that professional clubs have. And the first of those is something we've mentioned very briefly already in this video, and that's the prize money. So what we can see here is that prize money is paid based on where a team finishes in the league. So a team that finishes higher in the league gets more money at the end of the season. And we've also seen in this video, and we can see here, that teams can earn prize money from winning matches in the domestic cup as well as in that international competition. So what we're seeing here is there is a direct link between on-field success and an organization's financial health. So high performance in leagues and competitions can significantly boost a club's finances. Now, a strategic consideration coming from this income stream of prize money is that clubs may invest in players and coaching in order to enhance their competitiveness, because they're aiming to finish in a higher league position, they're aiming to win a domestic cup, and they're aiming to qualify for an international competition and then take part in an international competition, all to increase their prize money. Okay, so the next revenue stream is ticket sales, and there are two ways that fans can pay here. They can either pay to attend an individual match, or they can pay for season tickets. Now, a season ticket enables a fan to watch every home game in a designated seat throughout the season, and they normally work out much cheaper on a game-by-game basis than just buying a one-off ticket for one match. Now, this is a very stable and predictable source of revenue that directly ties in to the fans' engagement with the club, with the team, how they're performing, and their match day experience. So, one strategic consideration to take from the ticket sales is that by enhancing the stadium experience and maintaining a strong fan base are going to be crucial for maximising the income stream from ticket sales. And in fact, that ties into our next category, which is other match day income. Because of course, fans aren't just going to the grounds to watch the football. They want to buy drinks, they want to buy pie. Might not just be the normal fan. Business clients have boxes and they can entertain at the ground and give their clients food and drinks. And it just gives another reason for people to be buying tickets. And I use the word not fans to be buying tickets, just people to be buying tickets because it's about the experience. In fact, I was reading the other day that an average spend per person at Tottenham's ground, and Tottenham aren't challenging for the title. They are one of the top clubs, but they're not challenging for the title. An average spend is £71 per game. Now, compare that to one of the struggling teams in the same season. They were taking £15 per fan per game. So you can see there's a huge discrepancy in what fans are spending, and that's all about how clubs are generating match day income. Now, Tottenham have just opened a £1 billion stadium. And I remember when plans were first being proposed, there was talks of cheese rooms, so fans could go and enjoy fine cheeses before the games and probably during the games whilst overlooking the pitch. So you can see there is lots of ways clubs can diversify their offerings, or not even diversify, refocus their offerings on match days. Okay, another income revenue we've talked about are transfer fees. So we know that's the income from the sale of players to the clubs. Now, I've already mentioned these can be huge in value, especially if you're a club that can develop highly in-demand players. So a proposal here to kind of get this standard of player is for a club to invest in youth academies and player development programs in order to lead to profitable player sales. And in fact, it's what some clubs in the Premier League are doing. They're saying, okay, we can't compete. We can't go and buy a £100 million player here. We can't buy a £60 million player there. So what we will do is heavily invest, and that's not cheap, in the academy system in order that we're going to develop those £100 million players or those £60 million players. And you sell one of those players, and that refinances your academy, and then maybe you generate 2 players. Then you can sell one of those. So you can see it's a way to sustain the business if you focus on the academy. Okay, the next revenue stream is income from advertising and commercial sponsorship. Well, there's a number of ways that clubs can generate money through this. Firstly, advertisers and commercial sponsors can advertise around club stadiums. They can have their names on players' shirts, or they can use images of the club's brands or players in their own marketing material. I'm sure we've all seen adverts of footballers either moisturising or drinking in adverts on television around major tournaments. And even indeed, some clubs have sold naming rights to commercial sponsors so that stadiums aren't called the traditional names anymore, or their training facilities aren't called their traditional names anymore, but in fact are named after the sponsor. We've got things like the Etihad Stadium or the Walker Stadium. Now, most contracts with commercial sponsors last between 2 to 5 years, with contracts for naming rights generally being longer. So we can see that this is a major revenue source. And one thing we should consider here from a strategic point of view is how important it is to build a strong brand, and not only will attract the domestic market, but we know that we have at our football club an international fan base, and that can really attract lucrative sponsorship deals. Okay, the next income revenue is income from sales of club merchandise. So clubs merchandise can be anything really. The offerings are vast now. I've already told you I got sent a pair of headphones with my membership renewal. They had the Leeds brand stamped all over it, as well as the sponsor of the time. So this could be kind of any merchandise really, clothing, children's products, accessories, gifts, and can be sold through club shops or retail outlets in Kyleland and foreign countries and on the club's website. But of course, I suppose the product that comes most to mind when we talk about clubs merchandise are the official replica kits, which is basically the tops you see the players wearing, or the full kit you see the players wearing at the weekends. You can purchase and maybe put your name on the back or your favourite player's name on the back. But of course, across the front and on the sleeves, you normally have the different sponsors. And you see the people wearing these, fans wearing these everywhere you go. Now, there are two different types of kits, fake kits and official kits. Official replica kits have the official marks that show they are genuine. Of course, the fake kits don't. So here, I think we can see the importance of merchandise sales is that by selling this club branded merchandise, you are strengthening fan engagement, and that fan engagement helps bolster or even create an additional revenue stream. So a strategic consideration here could be to expand retail operations and online sale platforms to help boost your merchandise revenue. I don't want to keep on going on about Leeds, but we went through a really fallow point a few years ago, and the owner of the time, who isn't much liked amongst fans, stopped the kits being sold anywhere in Leeds. He would only sell them from the stadium. So that meant in all the shops in this city, or the sports shops in the city, you couldn't buy a Leeds kit. You could only buy a Manchester United kit or an Arsenal kit or a Chelsea kit. And of course, what that meant was that children growing up in the city thought, well, I want a kit for my birthday. They might have got a Man United kit or an Arsenal kit. And of course, that's strengthening their brand, but not the Leeds brand. So what ownership has done since then is to reintroduce club shops throughout the city and to make sure that fans can access this kind of merchandise, which helps create this revenue stream. Okay, the next income stream we've got is hosting events other than football matches at club stadiums. So this can be things such as music concerts or other sports contests, as well as conferences for organisations or exhibitions and things like this. Now, of course, what this does is it means that their stadium isn't being used for only, 18 games a year. I think there's 36 games in the league, and there are 18 of them at home. So 18 games a year. For the rest of the year, it's sitting empty. So really what we want to do to increase the revenue here is to make sure that the stadium is being used for other things to help bring the income. Again, we're talking about the Tottenham Stadium. They host NFL matches. They host like the biggest concerts in London. I think Beyonce played there on the latest tour. So one strategic consideration here is for us to market the stadium as a venue for concerts, as a venue for events and conferences in order to diversify income sources and to bring income steadily across the year and not just during the football season, which is from August to May. Okay, the next income stream is television broadcasting income. Now, the income here is from a deal with a television company in Kyleland, and that's been awarded exclusive rights to broadcast league and domestic cup matches. And in turn, clubs receive an agreed amount of income each season, and then on top of that, they get an extra income dependent on how many matches they appear in, which are televised live. Now, the terms of the television contract are negotiated by representatives of the KFL and the clubs in the KFL, and they are bound collectively by the contract. Clubs with men's first teams in Division 1 of the KFL receive much higher income from the deal than clubs with teams in the lower divisions. We can see here that TV deals are going to provide a substantial part of a club's revenue, especially if you're in the first division. So what we want to make sure we do is to not get relegated to one of the lower divisions, because that's really going to affect TV revenue. So what that shows us is the strategic importance of maintaining competitive teams. Now, I would talk about Leeds here and how we got relegated and how much the TV or losing the TV money has hurt us over the years, but it's too painful. So I'm just going to move on past to the next income revenue, which is television channel income. So this is when clubs have their own television channels. So they're not just talking about showing matches. What they're doing here is maybe showing exclusive interviews with the manager, showing the training session, showing friendly matches that aren't under the exclusive contract with the television company from our previous section. And from that, they get viewers from the fans. It helps boost fan engagement. And of course, they also get advertising income. And of course, fans don't get this for free. They have to pay for it. So fans are paying for this subscription. So it's just another revenue stream for the clubs. And goes to show that offering exclusive content can enhance fan loyalty and open new revenue streams. So there we go. That is 9 revenue streams for football clubs. And we've suggested the strategic consideration for each revenue stream. But it's also important to remember good corporate governance in relation to revenue management. Because good corporate governance in managing all these diverse income streams involves transparency, ethical financial practices, as well as the strategic planning to make sure there is long-term sustainability. And it also requires compliance with financial regulations, including the financial fair play, which we will come on to maintain the club's reputation and operational integrity. So you don't forget, when you're thinking about these strategic considerations, don't ignore good corporate governance. Don't ignore sustainability. It's all part of the package. It's all part of the suggestions that you should be making. Okay, let's move on to expenditure. Okay, so we've just run through all those lovely income streams, and I'm sure all thinking, hey, let's go and buy a football club. It's an easy way to make money, but unfortunately, as we're about to discover, there's lots of expenditures as well. And the first of those are employee salaries and benefits. Now, this is typically the largest expense for football clubs. And of course, we're not just looking at the player wages. We've got all the coach wages, and also all the admin staff wages. So a really hefty bill there. So a real strategic consideration here is making sure we manage wage bills effectively so that we are financially stable. And one way to do this is clubs link player salaries to performance to align expenses with success. So an example I can give you from the history of Leeds United is we often give contracts that automatically reduce by 25%, 40%, hefty reduction if the team is relegated. And that means if Leeds are relegated, they're not suddenly going to go bankrupt because they can't afford to keep paying their players, which we've done in the past. So we've learned our lesson. So the next expenditure is a significant part of football accounting, and that's amortization costs. Now, this reflects the cost of player transfers over the duration of their contract. So the transfer fees for buying players represents capital expenditure on assets. Now, the assets are the players themselves. Now, the transfer fees are capitalized at the fair value of the fees. Then the capitalized transfer fees are then amortized on a straight line basis over the period of the player's contract. And the profit or loss on disposal of each player is calculated as the difference between sale proceeds and the carrying amount of players after amortization. So the strategic consideration here is that a club's smart transfer market policy and activity can optimize amortization costs, and investing in player development can reduce reliance on expensive transfers. Okay, our next point is stadium facilities. So of course there's lots of costs linked to running a stadium and the facilities. We've got the property running cost, the depreciation of property, plant and equipment. So we've already seen that modernizing stadiums can increase high revenues because you can diversify, you can bring in acts and conferences and different sporting events. But of course, that higher revenue needs to be balanced against the high cost of maintenance of all these elements, as well as the renovation. I told you the building of Tottenham's new stadium cost in the region of £1 billion. So we can see these things are not cheap. So our next expenditure is match days costs. Here we've got things such as catering and security. So here security is going to be like police and club stewards, trying to help maintain order in the stands. So one of the strategic considerations here is that efficiency is very much the watchword, because efficient management of matchday operations can control the costs whilst maintaining high standards of service and security. Remember, part of our higher revenue strategy was to improve the match day experience for fans. That's going to attract them to the stadium. That's going to attract more people. So it's important that we offer them a good service, but we have to be mindful of the costs. And television channel costs are our next expenditure. This is, of course, for clubs that do operate their own channels. But, of course, that does mean they've got production and operation costs involved in running the channels. So it's really important that content quality and viewer engagement are thought about and are key to making sure that fans pay for them, enjoy paying for them, and the service becomes profitable rather than just an additional expense for the club to bear. And the last cost we've got are finance costs. So these are things, interest, payments on debt, and other financial obligations can obviously impact the club's bottom line. So the strategic consideration here is that we have to be mindful of debt management, and we have to really focus on financial planning in order to minimize the finance costs and maintain financial health. And of course, we still have to think about good corporate governance in relation to expenditure management, because this would ensure that clubs operate within their financial means while still being able to invest in growth and development. It involves strategic decision making regarding resource allocation, ethical financial practices, and adherence to financial regulations to safeguard the club's long-term sustainability. Understanding the various areas of expenditure for football clubs is going to be vital for you as candidates in the ACCA SBL exam, because it offers insights into the financial challenges and strategic considerations involved in managing a sports entity. By analysing these expenditures, you will be able to appreciate the importance of financial management, strategic investment, and good corporate governance in maintaining a club's competitive edge and financial health. So there we go. We can now move on to the next section. And that section is Financial Fair Play Regulations, FFPR. And basically, these are a set of regulations that are trying to encourage teams to not spend more than they earn as they try and buy players and compete for success. And of course, open themselves up to the possibility of getting into financial difficulties which may jeopardize their experience. So really, we can kind of focus on 3 or 4 aims of FFPR. The first is that it's encouraging clubs to engage in more prudent financial planning and management. It's going to help encourage clubs to develop long-term financial strategies which balance ambition with financial health. Another aim of it is financial stewardship and sustainability, because the regulations are rooted in the concept of financial stewardship, where clubs are expected to manage their resources responsibly. And this stewardship involves making decisions that ensure the club's financial health over the long term, safeguarding its future rather than focusing on the short term. And of course, this aligns very closely with the syllabus's emphasis on sustainability within organisations. Another aim of FFPR is just competitiveness and fair play. It's kind of trying to level the playing field amongst clubs, making sure the success isn't just a result of an organisation coming in with a load of money, but helps kind of tip the balance in favour of smart management, innovation and talent development. And this element or this aspect of FFPR promotes a more competitive and unpredictable sport, and again that enhances its appeal across the board. And the final one is the one we've already touched on, the main one really, I suppose, or the one that comes most quickly to mind, as mitigating financial risks, just trying to stop clubs spending beyond their earnings, and it reduces the risk of insolvency and financial crises within the sport, which has happened many times in the English game over the last 15-20 years, of course, including Leeds United in that, as always. And FFPR applies to a club relevant earnings, which aren't identical to accounting profits, as the relevant earnings equal relevant income minus relevant expenses. So the components of relevant income are going to include income streams that are core to the club's operations, such as prize money, ticket sales, TV revenue, income from advertising and sponsorship, merchandise sales, and profits from sales of players, as well as other tangible assets. Basically, the income streams we've just gone through. Now, these elements are integral to the club's primary function and directly impact its financial health and competitive capabilities. Now, the components of the relevant expenses are expenditures essential to maintaining and enhancing the club's competitive edge. So they're going to be player salaries, amortization of transfer costs, losses from player transfers, as well as asset sales. It also includes finance costs and dividends, representing financial obligations that impact the club's liquidity and financial stability. Now, relevant earnings are really important because they provide a focus lens through which clubs can assess the operation's financial health, but it filters out all the noise from the non-core activities and offers a really clear view of financial performance and sustainability, which are directly linked to the core operations. Now, this focused analysis is crucial for strategic planning and decision-making because it highlights areas of financial strength and vulnerability within the club's primary activities. So understanding and accurately reporting relevant earnings are vital for compliance with FFPR because they demonstrate how clubs manage their finances in adherence to established relations. And this practice underscores the importance of transparent and precise financial reporting. Now, the pre-scene also provides an example. And we can see that the relevant earnings rules are introduced in year 0. And then consideration whether they've been breached starts in the 3rd year. So the end of the first 3-year period. Now, penalties for breaching FFPR include fines, loss of points, something that's happened recently in the English Premier League, loss of prize money in the league, not being allowed to compete in the Kyleland Domestic Cup, Kyleland I think that should read, or the we're seeing international league competitions, and relegation to lower divisions for very serious breaches. So we can see that the analysis of relevant earnings within the FFPR framework really exemplifies the practical application of financial management principles outlined in the syllabus, and it demonstrates the critical role of focused financial analysis and reporting in supporting strategic planning, regulatory compliance, and the sustainable success of football clubs and businesses alike. Okay, so now we can move on to the media covered section. It's a short section, but there's quite a lot we can pull out of it. We can see that many games are broadcast and live on television. We know that. There's also coverage of clubs in Division 1 in Kyleland's newspapers and social media. In order to increase newspaper sales, journalists are very keen to obtain exclusive stories about clubs and players. So there are several implications we can draw out of this very short paragraph. Now, we know that there is substantial media coverage of KFL Division 1, and that necessitates, sophisticated marketing strategies which are going to leverage this visibility to enhance brand recognition, engage with the fans, as well as attract sponsorship. Now, clubs are going to have to navigate the opportunities as well as the challenges presented by this media landscape in order to maximize commercial benefits and fan engagement. So, thinking back to marketing promotion from the ACCA syllabus, clubs are going to require an innovative marketing approach which align with the club's strategic objectives, leveraging media presence to enhance brand value and commercial opportunities. The second thing I pulled out is stakeholder engagement. And that's because media coverage serves as a critical tool for engaging various stakeholders. We got quite a few here. Fans, sponsors, as well as the local community. By effectively managing media relations and content dissemination, clubs can strengthen stakeholder relationships, which are going to foster a sense of community and loyalty that really should help them engage with all their stakeholders. Now, it should also be pointed out that media coverage is a double-edged sword that can either enhance or damage these relationships. And this really highlights the need for strategic communication and public relations efforts. And the third thing I pulled out is reputation management, because there's that little point at the end where journalists are very keen to obtain exclusive stories about the clubs and players. Well, of course, they in turn can impact the club's reputation. And so clubs have to proactively manage their media presence, mitigate any potential negative coverage, while also capitalizing on positive publicity. Reputation management is going to become a strategic priority that requires careful planning and response strategies in order to navigate the media landscape successfully. I mean, there are a number of tools that one could use when thinking about media coverage, whether it's a SWOT analysis to see whether its strengths and weaknesses, etc. are, or perhaps the risk management frameworks, which are going to allow clubs to identify, assess, and prepare for potential risks associated with media coverage, like reputational damage from negative press. And now this tool helps in developing strategies to mitigate risks, such as having crisis communication plans in place. Another tool that could be used is crisis communication plan. Now, this would ensure that clubs are prepared to respond quickly and effectively to negative media coverage. And this plan should include key messages, spokespersons, communication channels, and steps to manage and mitigate the impact of a crisis on the club's reputation. Okay, so we're scrolling down now to industry challenges, and we can see the main challenge the clubs face is for the men's first team to remain successful, and we've seen the reasons why it's so important. But what does success mean? Well, it means higher league positions, and it means performing well in the cups, so they can qualify for further competitions, the international competitions, and of course, we know then they will fill more grounds, they'll be on television more, they'll sell more kits, they'll sell more food and drink at the stadium, so it's kind of a snowball. So, to achieve success, clubs make significant expenditure in buying the best players and paying the high salaries which these players demand. Clubs can have difficulties ensuring that their income is greater than their expenditure. The operating profits of a number of leading clubs have fallen in recent years because of increasing costs connected with player purchases, player salaries. So we can see that it's the aim for clubs to have top league positions, to succeed in the league and the cups and the international leagues. But there is a financial implication to that aim, and that's acquiring top talent, and that's managing top talent's salary. Now, both of these things pose significant challenges especially in maintaining a balance between income and expenditure. And we can see that this dynamic has led to reduced operating profits for many leading clubs, primarily due to the escalating costs, as we've already seen. So, we've got to think of a way we can move past this challenge or manage this challenge as best we can. So one way we could do this is through value chain analysis and application. Now, this talk could be especially insightful in really analysing the various activities within a football club that contribute to its competitive advantage, and so can identify areas where value can be added to increase income or reduce costs. So the primary activities in a football club's value chain may include, in inbound logistics, something like talent recruitment; for operations, training and match performance; outbound logistics, fan engagement and merchandise sales; marketing and sales will be sponsorship deals and broadcasting rights; and services will be match day experience and community engagement. And by analysing these activities, clubs will be able to identify areas for improvement or investment that directly contribute to competitive success and financial health. So maybe what might come out of the analysis is that by enhancing the match day experience, ticket sales will increase, as well as other matchday revenues. Whereas a focus on developing talent through academies may reduce reliance on expensive player transfers, helping mitigate the issues that we've seen in industry challenges. So there's 4 other implications I pulled out of the paragraph, and that's balancing financial and competitive goals. So we've seen if clubs the operating profits of clubs have fallen in recent years because of what they've been spending on players, it's really important to balance financial and competitive goals. Clubs need to strategically allocate resources to areas that are going to maximize competitive advantage, but also so they generate sufficient revenue in order to cover their expenses. This is going to require a nuanced understanding of the club's value chain and the external competitive forces at play. The next thing I pulled out of this paragraph is investment in talent development. So one way to avoid paying these huge transfer fees is to invest in youth academies. Now, it only not kind of reduces the player acquisition costs, but it also strengthens the club's competitive position in the long term. We've seen clubs such as Brighton and Brentford really use their academy as well. Not only develop homegrown talent, but purchase players when they're very young, so they have minimal transfer fees. Then they nurture them really well in their academies and sell them for huge figures. This strategic focus also has the benefit that it can mitigate the bargaining power of suppliers, in this case would be players and agents, by developing in-house talent. So you can almost totally bypass the agents until they start getting their own. Okay, the next thing I pulled out is revenue diversification. So if clubs are facing the challenge of fluctuating incomes because they might not always win prizes, they might not always feature on TV a lot because they're not performing that well, to try and mitigate the impact of this, they should consider diversifying their revenue streams. Now, as we've seen already, this could involve enhancing the commercial sponsorships or expanding their merchandise offerings, or perhaps leveraging the club's brand for international market penetration. And finally, the final strategy I've pulled out to combat industry challenges is cost management. Focusing on effective cost management, especially when it comes to controlling the large player salaries and the massive transfer fees. Now, clubs may employ financial controls and performance-based pay structures to align player costs with the club's financial health and competitive performance. Just like I spoke about earlier, when Leeds had it built into the contracts that if they went down, then the salaries would be cut. Now, conversely, if teams do well, it would be written into the contract that players get bonuses or automatic contract renewals and things like that. So there we go. That's our look at industry challenges, and hopefully I've highlighted some ways in which clubs could try to enhance their competitive advantage but while also making sure they're financially sustainable and bypass some of the risks we've seen. But we have more risks to come. Thank you so much for watching today's video, which is of course the first video in the 3-video series where we're looking at the pre-scene of Athletic Transcentral. Now, in the second video, we're going to continue looking at the football industry in Kyleland. And then in the third video, we're going to take a more focused look at the club itself, as well as its mission and values and some financial summaries. But that's not it for the videos. There's also a strategic analysis video where we're going to be taking tools and models and applying them to Athletic Transcentral, and a top 10 issues video. These are issues that we've picked out of the case study that we think maybe may turn up in your exam. There is also an industry analysis text where we've gone through the industry and analysed it for even more information for you. Now, I can hear you asking, where do I get this from? How much does it cost? Well, I'm delighted to tell you that it is free, and all you have to do to sign up for the remaining videos and the industry analysis text is to sign up with Astranti and to access it through the study hub, or just follow the link in the description. Remember, they are absolutely free, so what have you got to lose? Once again, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the videos once you're signed up. Thank you.